The most terrifying cults to ever exist. Lock in, chat. Let's
start
go.
With the strange and slowly work our way towards the most terrifying ones on the list. Number 7, the Russian Doomsday Cult. The Russian Doomsday Cult would make international news in November of 2007 when around
I only know about the
35 of their
Illuminati or
members
whatever.
barricaded themselves inside of a small cave
That's a crazy
in Russia's
butt chin.
Penza region. And when authorities went down to investigate and remove them from the cave, the cult members would respond by threatening to blow themselves up. With some of the members even bringing their children inside of the cave, police were left with no option but to wait them out. But before I tell you how this all ends, let's first cover the origins of this mysterious group and how they got to that point. The cave dwellers were originally part of the Russian Orthodox Church, but they would end up leaving the church when a
That's not me. That is not me. That's not me at all, guys. Okay. First off, look at the hair. I don't have blonde hair, and that's a lot of hair action. Okay, that's not me right there. Grim, what's good?
A prophet named Pyotr Kuznetsov convinced them that the world would soon be coming to an end.
This is how it
Pyotr
always
would refer to his
bruh.
new followers as the chosen ones.
Wait a minute. Isn't one of these cults the Kool-Aid one where they all drank the Kool-Aid and they, isn't that one of these cults? It has to be on this list, you know what I mean? It's gotta be on this list. Big Mac, what's good?
Which made them feel special. Pyotr would ban his followers from eating processed foods, watching TV, or handling money.
You can't buy any food? What do you mean? Hey, yo. GG's.
They would also reject barcodes, national identification numbers, and passports, since Pyotr convinced them that they all contained the mark of the beast. But after some time had gone by, his followers began to ask questions.
Hey, Pyotr.
Yeah?
You know how you've been talking a whole lot about the end of the world and all?
Yeah?
Well, me and the others been wondering,
First off, dear Lord, what is this lazy eye? Is that eye even functioning? Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. Dude, it's crazy, bro, how these people they'll go and convince people about these out of the world crazy cult action things. And I'm pretty sure they always end in the people sacrificing themselves. I'm pretty sure that's what happens here.
well, when exactly is it?
Well,
What you mean?
May 2008. Yeah, May 2008.
Perfect.
Which was 6 months away.
Did he just take a dookie right there? I'm pretty sure he just took a dookie right there.
The group was then instructed to enter a small cave and patiently wait for the world to come to an end. The cult members entered the cave in November 2007, but conveniently enough, Pyotr would not be joining them. Instead, he had convinced his followers that since the world was ending, they would no longer need their personal possessions. With authorities speculating that he was busy selling off his followers' belongings, he was quickly arrested and taken into custody. If only he could have predicted his arrest. Okay, I'll see myself out. The cult members would oddly enough still remain inside of the cave, and 5 months would go by with no one entering or leaving. But on March 28th, 2008, 7 women finally had enough, exiting the cave and immediately seeking medical attention. A few days later, a portion of the cave would end up collapsing, leading more members to rage quit and exiting the cave. With some members still refusing to leave, the police would have the brilliant idea of bringing Pyotr down to the cave, where he would instruct his followers to exit. But they refused. And on May 16th, 2008, the last 9 members of the cult would finally emerge from the cave due to the toxic fumes produced by 2 of the members who had died over the winter.
And it's
expecting their exit, they greeted them with a cow.
That cow is that's the most elongated cow I've seen in my entire life. What happened to the cow, dude?
Since they refused to drink milk that contained a bar.
Okay, so now we're drawing anything at this point. Now we're drawing anything. What in God's green earth am I looking at right now? Why is the cow looking like this, bro? Okay, yeah, okay, fire.
Code. As for Pyotr, authorities would discover that the man actually slept inside of a coffin, further solidifying the fact that he was completely insane, where he would end up inside of a psych ward. Number 6, Shinrikyo. Probably one of the most infamous and dangerous cults to have ever existed. In 1987, this
It's a
cult would
stream
make
delay. I don't
themselves
know how
known to
it
the
is.
world when a few of their members orchestrated the deadliest domestic attack in Japan's history, leaving 13 innocent people dead and over 6,000 injured.
Only
But before we get to
13?
that
I'm
heinous
kidding. I'm
attack,
kidding.
let's first cover how this cult began. The year is 1987. A man named Chizuo Matsumoto began to distribute pamphlets claiming to have reached a new level of enlightenment through meditation. The pamphlet advertised a yoga class where you can come and learn about his amazing discovery. But during these classes, he would spend his time preaching about the end of the world. And that should have probably been your cue to updog your way out the class.
What's that?
Nothing much, man. What's up with you?
I don't get it.
And over the course of a few years, he managed to garner dozens of loyal followers, naming the group Shinrikyo, which roughly translates to the Supreme Truth. And in 1992, Chizuo Matsumoto would gain even more followers when he released a book titled Declaring Myself the Christ, which had a picture of him on the cross as the cover. At its peak, the cult would grow to over tens of thousands of members that spanned over multiple countries. His followers would even state that if people would just take a moment to listen to their enlightened leader, they too would see the light. But without warning, on the morning of March 20th, 1995, tragedy would strike when a total of 5 chemical weapon attacks took place in the Tokyo subway system, killing 13 innocent people and injuring around 6,000 others. The attacks would quickly backfire as the authorities began to arrest everyone involved, including the cult leader. These attacks were meant to initiate the apocalypse, and once the world had collapsed, the cult would rise to rule the world in the way that they saw fit. But instead, the attacks...
So let me get this straight, bro. He just convinced people that he was Christ, essentially. And he said, let's go attack a subway system. And in doing that, they're going to rule the world. Is this like, how is that going to work? I don't understand how this is working right here. That doesn't make any sense, though.
led the leader and 6 high-ranking members directly to death row, where they were held until their execution date, which came on July 6, 2018.
Oh!
Number 5.
2018? Oh, dang.
Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was an American religion movement that began to garner a following in Southern California during the mid-1970s.
Wait, I think I've heard of this one.
The group has been characterized as a UFO religion cult, whatever the hell that means. The followers of this cult believed that they could transform themselves into immortal extraterrestrial beings once they rejected their human nature, something that they would refer to as reaching the
So these are furries? Is that where... Are we talking about furries right now? Is that what this is?
next level, which I guess they ultimately did, but more on that later. The group was started by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, who after confiding in each other would come to the conclusion that they were the 2 witnesses described in the book of Revelation, which would make them prophets. Fully convinced, they would attend church groups where they would present themselves as the 2. And I can only assume how funny that must have been. He broke the bread and gave it to them, saying, this is my body. Excuse me? Yeah? Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to let you guys know that, well, we are the 2. What does that mean? Like, the 2. I'm not following. You know, like, what 2? The 2 from the book of Revelations? Right. Get a load of this guy. But somehow the 2 would begin to garner a
Holy
following when they
forehead!
began to hand out flyers advertising their seminars, like this one, claiming to be from the next level, leaving their higher being self to come down to earth.
This is what, I think this is what we call gaslighting right here. I think this is next level gaslighting. First off, how in the world did they think that they were the 2? Like, there's got to be some sort of gaslighting here, you know what I mean? Something like that.
To help others. And somehow they managed to recruit around 39 loyal followers. Now, one of the strangest and most terrifying thing about this cult was the fact that all male members were required to be castrated. Which we can all agree is a wild thing to just throw out.
I'm sorry, it's probably good that I don't know this off the top of my head, but I'm assuming that castrated is like something with like your wiener, right? If anyone could like, you know, like, what is castrated? Oh, we're talking about removing the testicles. Dear Lord. Oh my gosh. GG's.
The group would first try to do the procedure in-house, almost killing one of their members. So all future castrations would take place at the local hospital. The group would be left in complete shock when one of the two founding leaders, Bonnie Nettles, would suddenly pass away. This would cause the entire cult's belief system to collapse, since they originally preached that all members were to ascend alive inside of a UFO. So Applewhite made a few adjustments to their beliefs and would come to the conclusion that only
he put out a patch note on this, bro.
Only the person's soul would be taken by the spaceship. 12 years would go by, and the members of Heaven's Gate grew tired of waiting. And on March 26, 1997, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department would discover a horrifying scene. Inside of a rented mansion laid 39 lifeless bodies, including the cult's leader, bringing Applewhite's revelations to fruition. And in his own words, the members of Heaven's Gate had finally graduated. Number 4.
Was that the people that had the Kool-Aid, or was that a different thing? Theoretically, I heard about that one right there, where they all, I mean, they literally all just, 39 or something like that. GG's.
Branch
a
Davidians.
UFO.
This is one of the most insane cults to have ever existed. The Branch Davidians.
That ain't a UFO. That's a UFO, my boy.
Were an apocalyptic Christian cult founded in Texas in 1935 by a man named Victor Houteff. And in 1957, the cult would purchase 941 acres of land near Elk, Texas, where they would build a large community that would serve as their home and headquarters. But things wouldn't really start to heat up until 1987, when a man named David Koresh would take over as the cult's leader. And he was, of course, you guessed it, a self-proclaimed
yes.
According to David, he was appointed by God as a prophet
Look
with
at them
the task
teeth.
of bringing the day of judgment. But David's downfall would start when he began to illegally collect and stockpile dozens of guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Oh yeah,
since
brother.
he was preparing for
Send
the
it
upcoming apocalypse. And on February 28th, 1993, federal agents would arrive at the cult's doorsteps with a search and arrest warrant in hand. But the Davidians' cult members had no intentions of allowing them inside or arresting their leader. And within moments, gunshots began to go off. In the gunfire, 4 federal agents and 6 Davidians would end up losing their lives. But this was just the beginning. The cult members would go on to barricade themselves inside of their compound for 51 days. But eventually, the FBI was given the green light to enter, firing multiple tear gas canisters inside, and shortly after, the entire building would erupt in flames. And to this day, no one really knows who started the fire, but after it was lit, the standoff would end within the hour, with 76 Davidians and their leader perishing in the fire or by smoke inhalation. And for the high-ranking cult members who managed to escape with their lives, they would end up inside of a cell. Number 3, Order of...
Boy, they said, yeah, we're done, and they just hit that end button right there.
High-ranking cult members who managed to escape with their lives, they would end up inside of a cell.
You think I look like this dude? You think I look like this guy right here?
Number 3, Order of the Solar Temple. This apocalyptic cult would make national headlines on October 4th, 1994, when 2 fires would break out in Switzerland, one at a farm and the other in a chalet. When the paramedics arrived at the scene, they would discover a total of 48 burned bodies across both locations. They had all been wearing white cloaks, but strangely enough, some of them also had a plastic bag over their heads. They were all laid out flat on the ground and in a circle. One of the sites was even surrounded by mirrors and the cult's symbols. On arrival, officers would also discover that the fires had been ignited with the remote control device. And since this was the early 1990s, they were clearly showing off. But these fires wouldn't be an isolated incident.
That's a way to go right there.
In fact, This was just the beginning. 1 year later, on December 15th, 1995 in France, 16 burned bodies would be discovered, laying in the formation of a star. Then 2 years later, on March 22nd, 1997, 5 more members would be discovered in Canada. They were yet again set ablaze by a remote-controlled device. Now, here's the terrifying part. Remember those plastic bags? Well, apparently multiple cult members refused to drink the poison on the night of the sacrifice, where they were then held down against their will and had plastic bags placed over their heads. This was not a choice. Everyone had to participate. The reason why these cult members took part in these rituals was because they believed that the end of the world was near, and by leaving Earth, their souls would ascend to another planet, inevitably escaping the apocalypse. Number 2.
So, like, if dying is the way that you get off of the planet, then, like, wouldn't you be dying if it was the end of the universe? Or are you, like, maybe they thought it was, like, I don't know, maybe it just, like, it hit E. Like, when Patrick's car ran out of gas in SpongeBob, he threw away the car because he thought it meant end. But in reality, he could have just refilled that John up, you know what I mean? Refill that thing up on apple juice.
Movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. Could they not have thought of a shorter name? Now, this will probably be one of the most tragic endings to a cult that you will ever hear. But
let me guess, they all die.
Before I tell you how this all ends, let's first cover the cult's rise and beliefs. This was a religious movement that took place in Uganda from 1989 through the early 2000s. The group would claim to be a religious movement, garnering around 5,000 members at its peak. However, the rest of the world would categorize this group as a doomsday cult. The cult's beliefs were very simple.
Them.
Members were strictly to follow the 10 Commandments.
Frick!
They thought that by doing so, they would escape the coming apocalypse. They actually feared breaking the commandments so much that a lot of the members outright refused to speak and would instead communicate using sign language.
Wait, what? They wouldn't speak? Like, just to avoid it at all? They just wouldn't speak? Interesting. Okay. Looks like he must have sewn his mouth shut or something? Adapting
the classic winning strategy of, you can't lose if you don't play. Which is a strategy that I have been using for years, making my friends absolutely jealous. Since they say stuff to me like, you literally don't even leave the house. You don't do anything anymore. And what happened to you? But don't worry, those are just words. It's so much better to know that you remain undefeated. The leaders of the cult would even claim to be able to directly talk to God and being told when the world would come to an end, placing the date on December 31st, 1999.
Classic. Everyone thought the world was going to end on 1999, which, I mean, relatively, it makes sense. I mean, that's the end of the 1990. Now you're in the 2000. It's like, well, you might have a point there.
As soon as this date was announced, the cult members erupted in a frenzy, selling their livestock and all of their belongings for very cheap. The leaders would then instruct their members to give all of the money to the movement, which they gladly did. But eventually, the date of doomsday arrived, and surprise, nothing happened, causing the leaders to push the date back to March 17th, 2000. With the followers enraged and beginning to ask for their money back, the leaders could not afford to be wrong this time around. So on March 17th, 2000, all 530 members were instructed to attend a party inside of a boarded up church. But just moments after the last person arrived, the party would quickly come to an end. With the only entrance to the church being shut, the building quickly erupted in flames. With no way out, all 530 members
Is that Goku?
would be trapped inside and slowly burned alive.
GG.
Police would later discover that 2 of the 5 cult leaders never attended the party. And just 4 days after the church fire, police would investigate all of the cult's properties, discovering an additional 395 bodies. The bodies of members that had been poisoned just days before the party, raising the total body count to over 900.
Still less than Bonnie Blue.
The 2 cult leaders that are believed to have orchestrated these attacks managed to escape the country before being captured. And to this day, they remain free.
What? To this day? Oh my gosh, it's the freaking Kool-Aid one. This is it, I think. It's purple Kool-Aid. It's the Prime bottle.
People's Temple. This cult would become one of the most talked about tragedies in all of American history. With countless of documentaries made on the subject and word of a new movie currently in the works, it really goes to show just how much of an impact this cult has had on society. It would all begin in 1954 in Indianapolis, Indiana, when a communist man named Jim Jones
It was Buzzy. It was Harold. I knew it.
opened up his own church, attracting people by offering healing services, claiming to heal all sorts of diseases. In the coming years, Jones would garner thousands of loyal followers, secretly using religion to further his political ideology. After a while, Jones would begin to get criticized for his
You think me? Guys, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, bro? It was not me, bro. Clearly, bro. I'm very young. I'm only like, I'm super young. So like, how could I even do this? Yeah.
views, leading him to move to California in 1965.
Tomato
and
to
by
the
the early
face.
1970s, he had established the temple's headquarters in San Francisco. Old members would be tasked with recruiting, leading to massive growth, and eventually they would reach thousands of members.
Hey,
Yeah? What's up?
do you like Jesus?
What? Like our Lord and Savior Jesus?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess. He's cool.
cool. Want to like him with us?
I'm okay, man. Thanks.
Why?
I'm okay, brother. Appreciate the offer, though.
Why?
Just keep it moving, man.
Why?
Brother, try someone else.
Why?
All right, man, you're ridiculous. Just give me the flyer.
Why?
Okay, I
Okay.
can't do this. But the next step would come in 1974 when Jones would acquire close to 4,000 acres of remote land in Guyana in South America, a place he would call Jonestown, slowly sending over members
GG.
as they would begin to build homes and inhabiting the land. He convinced his followers to
shipping
move
them?
by selling them the vision of paradise, a
Yup.
place where they can live freely without the government getting involved. For Jones, creating a socialist society had always been his goal, and it was finally taking shape. By 1977, around 900 members lived on the compound, and this would also be the same year that Jones would permanently join them. But the moment he arrived, things quickly changed. Everyone was expected to work 8-hour days, followed by classes at night, where they would learn about socialism. Jones had effectively begun to brainwash his followers, even taking on the name Father. But everything would change on November 17th, 1978, when a politician named Leo Ryan and his team arrived at Jonestown to investigate claims of abuse. After the investigation was complete, Ryan would be ambushed at the airstrip, where he and 3 others would be fatally gunned down. Jones, knowing that the end was near, had a few helpers prepare a giant tub of grape-flavored drink.
Grape? Was it grape? I thought it was red, though. I thought it was red. I thought it was red Kool-Aid.
Adding to it a concoction of drugs
GGs.
and cyanide. He would then instruct all of his followers to drink a cup. Not knowing what was in it, his followers blindly followed his instructions.
Bro really just said hit the reset button, dude. Or just hit the end button. That's what he did right here.
And
Kool-Aid
with
moment!
that cup, they had all but sealed their fate. More than 900 people, including Jones, would end up dying shortly after. This incident would create the famous saying, Don't drink the Kool-Aid, meaning to not
Kool-Aid.
blindly follow a leader or ideology without questioning or critical thinking, or you just might end up like the people at Jonestown.
GG's. GG's. W video.